Joe Budden checks Melyssa Ford for her poor performance.
Right, don't do it like you did the last part when you was mad. Do your job. Do your job. I had to walk aside. Yo.
Yeah, you did that.
Yo. Talking to us as a collective, it could get scary.
Yeah.
If y'all don't do your.
That's what you said.
All what y'all doing.
Yeah.
No, I did not. I said all of us together.
No, you used the word crying.
I see what y'all doing, and if I get to talking, somebody gonna cry up here.
Yeah, Melyssa Ford is having a rough week or couple weeks at the Joe Budden podcast. There was a time when everything was kind of rosy, but it seems like over the last few weeks, they're turning up the fire on her, and it all started when there was this argument about wasting someone's time in a relationship.
No, they're not.
They are.
No, they're not. Damned if you do it, you damned if you don't as a woman.
You're not.
Not damn.
No, do that to her because
Because she's wasting our time.
No, don't do that.
Yo,
Joe.
all right, see.
Don't do that to her. She gonna shut the. Oh, come on, Joe. Mel, no, Mel.
No,
she
no,
told
no,
you.
don't do it, Mel. Come on, Mel.
No, because you guys are being fucking assholes,
No,
and it's annoying.
And I know a lot of people are going to say, it's just a conversation, it's just a debate, but it triggered a series of moments that may make Melyssa Ford look a little crazy for how she participates on the Joe Budden podcast. Well, like I said, the conversation was a gender war topic about how men and women cohabitate in relationships, how often women accuse men of wasting their time. Well, a little bit later into the discussion, Melyssa Ford says that she never said that a man wasted her time.
I have never, ever in my entire life said to a man, you wasted my time. Never.
Okay, so you
never,
know,
because that's not the way I
but
look
you know,
at
waste time. That's what I'm asking
Yes,
you, man.
yes, I do.
That's what I'm saying, man.
What?
And that's cap.
How is that? Who are you talking to?
And that made the whole cast upset because they said you did say someone wasted your time on the previous episode. Now, if you remember back about a year or two ago, Melyssa Ford said that she was dating some dude in London and she thought it was more serious than it was, but she slowly found out that she was just another part of the program. You just a statistic. Anyway, at around that time of the conversation that they're referencing, Ish told Melyssa Ford, the rest of the cast told Melyssa Ford, listen, man, we all kind of could have seen that situation coming from a mile away just based upon who you said this person was. He appeared to be very wealthy. He was living in London, and he was probably cycling you through a series of chicks, like you were just one of his roster. And fast forward to the argument I'm talking about, Melyssa Ford says, oh, I never said he was wasting my time. So everybody was like, triggered. No, you said this dude wasted your time. And then that led to Melyssa Ford blowing a gasket, looking real upset, just looking generally uncomfortable. It would be so uncomfortable that on the subsequent Patreon, Melyssa Ford would be quiet as a mouse.
It's that last breakup, right?
You a hoe.
After that little Uber to the Bahamas, it's over.
Oh, no, I was outside.
I mean,
You thought I was.
Hey,
It's fine.
It's
fine, guys. I'm glad to be.
I don't know what he's doing.
You ain't gonna lie, you're a different breed.
And
today,
there's
Joe.
no way to know that because you stepped on my mess, quote unquote.
That's true. Well, we still got what we needed.
We got him.
Look,
We got him.
I didn't get what I need. What's up, Mel?
Chilling.
How do we feel about?
Like, she just was quiet the whole time, making faces, looking disgusted, looking upset, and Joe would talk to her about it. This isn't without notice because Joe spotlighted it on the episode. He was saying, oh man, when people do that on the pod, it can really make things bad. But what are the bad things that can happen? Well, I think it could somehow lead to a situation where someone gets fired off the show, empty couches get broken out again, and we have another episode 437. In the military, they have this saying, right? If you don't do your uniform right, that shows you're not a serious soldier. It's not necessarily that you not doing your uniform right is going to lead to a bad situation, but it indicates your mind state. It indicates what's going on with you. It indicates that maybe if you're in the field, you might lead to a situation where we're all gunned down because you weren't taking it seriously. I'm guessing Joe feels that Melyssa Ford not treating this discussion as entertainment and instead treating it as a real issue for her to get mad about might reveal what is going on inside her brain. And she acted like a bit of a, I don't want to say the word, but anyway, let me say it anyway, diva. So what? As Joe would say, you are bugging. Let's just have a conversation. Don't get angry, make your point. Don't then in turn make the Patreon weird because of an argument that happened. Joe even highlighted that Melyssa Ford walked off set, started consoling Daisy. And this is when Melyssa Ford will probably get into her bag about, I'm the only one up here. I'm alone. I'm isolated. I have no support system. But, I mean, Melyssa Ford isn't the only one that be going through the motions on the pod. There's other members of the show. Let's look at Ish. There was a while where he was quiet on air and it looked like he was trying to demonstrate his value. Then there was Flip, who tried that same exact tactic. Y'all remember that series of episodes where Flip was weirdly quiet? He was negotiating on air. Now, why am I highlighting that? Well, because Joe Budden said he doesn't like when people negotiate on air. He used to say Rory and Mal, they were immature. They used to come on air and have discussions about contracts and try to sub me. Or they used to not get prepared for the show. Mal was on his phone because he was disinterested as a result of the business setup we had. And look what's happening here. All members of the cast have done around the same tactic. The same thing. And here we go. Joe isn't as aggressive in checking this, even though he is aggressive sometimes, as he was with Rory and Mal. But I largely think that's because he has the same business setup that he wants. Like, he doesn't have a business setup where somebody is participating in profit. These people are just paid a set salary per episode, and that's that. There's also something new happening to the Joe Budden podcast that I tried to wake up when I joined Joe Budden in Spaces a couple days ago. I had a question I wanted to ask. I wanted to ask Joe, what do you think about Spaces?
Let's wake it up. Y'all really sick of Imani and Flip doing these Spaces? Because they do it a lot. Like, they do it right after the pod drop. That's crazy. How you gonna let that happen?
What does sick of mean?
Maybe it's not to your liking to some level.
What if it was? What if I absolutely loved it and thought it was a genius idea?
I mean, you could tell us if that's what if it is. I mean, you're indeed Joe Budden, right? How do you actually feel about it? I would think it would create some type of clash when people are appearing more prepared for their spaces than the actual pod.
Oh, well, that would be conjecture on your part.
How would it be conjecture? There's actual evidence.
There's no evidence of someone being more prepared for spaces than they are for a podcast. I think that's where the spaces pod line gets a little blurry for some people.
Well, there are some elements that overlap with both parts, and I do think that some people just show a different side of themselves on spaces that could also play out well on the pod.
This is the biggest thing moving, Danny. Listen, I'm down to joke. I love jokes. But in real life, in reality, with all of the flip spaces, with all of the whatever you want to throw out there, this is the biggest thing moving, bigger than it's ever been previously. So it makes it tough to come say, hey, stop your spaces.
So you're saying it makes it tough to even have that conversation.
You're so slick.
Right? Spaces is the Clubhouse feature on Twitter where a lot of users can get online and talk about, anything under the sun. And if you notice, a lot of members of the show have been doing their own spaces for hours and hours and hours. And it's become a problem. It's become a huge problem. Joe doesn't want to talk about it, as you can see here when I ask him about it. But Flip has admitted that he was on Spaces before an episode of Improper Improv and said that looked crazy. Then Manny's throwing spaces where he seems more comfortable giving it up than he does on the pod. Now, is that a reflection of how serious they are taking the brand? Or is it a reflection of how hard it is to acclimate into the Joe Budden podcast? Jaywan said it. He said, listen, man, it's so hard to speak on that show. It's so hard to fit in. So I think a lot of these people are finding their voices on spaces. And as a result, the Joe Budden podcast might be hurting. And the spaces at times, not all the time, because spaces is a lot of trash too. But at some times, the pod is not as good as spaces. Right? For my listening habits, I've been going back to listen to old spaces. I've been going back to listen to some of the spaces between Joe and Rocky. Appointment viewing, when Flip was arguing with Joe about improper improv. It's gotten to the point where I'm seeing spaces as classic episodes as opposed to seeing the podcast as classic episodes. I remember spaces more than I do the pod. And I think Joe knows this is an issue. He just doesn't want to wake it up. And believe it or not, I think it'll be in a contract in the future. I think Joe will put in future contracts, you cannot do social audio within 4 hours of the pod release day, or you can only do social audio a day after. Why listen to the pod if these members are joining spaces and talking to the audience? On top of that, the spaces are being clipped up and being listened to by hundreds of thousands of people, both on Twitter and on YouTube. So only time will tell how this goes, but that's a major tension that I think is going unnoticed, which is why I had to ask it in the spaces on that day. Anyway, that's my post for today. Let me know what you think about what I woke up earlier in regards to Melyssa Ford and Joe's recent tension and how it's impacting the product, with Melyssa Ford looking uncomfortable, pouting, and all of that stuff. And also let me know about what I woke up in the second part of the video. Are spaces creating a problem for the Joe Budden podcast? I think it's something that is very obvious, but let me know what you think. All right, everybody, follow me on Instagram, The Stop TV. Follow me on Twitter, The Stop TV. Follow my Patreon, The Stop. That's where videos come out early, and a lot of good stuff goes down. There's like 130 pieces of content on that right now. This is Danny from The Stop. Peace.